Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by Hollis, Wright & Couch, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the Hollis, Wright & Couch Law Firm and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome in to the attorneys. Appreciate you spending your Sunday evening with us. The whole setup of this show is for you, us to provide you with the opportunity to get your questions to our panel of experts. For you to do so, that information, we make it easy for you. You can call, text, email, do that right now if you wish. We'd love to pass your questions along to our panel of experts from the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch. Leading the way, Josh Wright to the firm. Good to see you, Josh.
You too. Hope you had a great week.
Indeed, I did.
You know, David, I think people probably recall the April 2010 BP oil disaster and the impact that it had generally on the Gulf of Mexico during that period of time. What we're going to be talking about today is the next step in that process, which is that there has been a global resolution reached that impacts businesses and individuals across the Southeast. The BP oil spill impacted some 16,000 miles of coastline. Wow. But this settlement that we're going to be talking about today impacts a lot more than that. It's not just coastline. It's folks that have businesses up in Huntsville, folks that have businesses in Birmingham, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And when we have BP issues at our firm and we handle a lot of these cases, we go to Tyler Vail at my law firm. And so I brought Tyler on to be able to talk about it. Tyler is heading the project at the firm. He knows this stuff backwards and forwards. He's got the relationships with our experts and forensic accountants that are doing the work with him, and he's representing a bunch of different businesses. So when we have these issues come up, this is the guy I go to, and he's the office I go down to. And so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you, Josh.
Obviously, he's a regular on this show anyway, so he's a good fit for us. I think the best thing to do, Tyler, maybe is to kind of start from the beginning, what happened in April of 2010, and then let's work our way through from there so we give people at least an overview and some context.
Yeah, sure. And like you said, I'm sure most folks know exactly what we're talking about. But there was a huge explosion on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. It was being run by TransUnion. The name of the rig was the Deepwater Horizon. You know, it was licensed to BP. That's why BP is the ultimate person responsible here. But a huge explosion. I think 11, 12 people were killed during the explosion, a couple dozen injured. It made news globally, all over the news. The rig actually caught on fire, burned for several days before it eventually had to be sunk down into the Gulf of Mexico. During that process, some of all the drilling equipment and everything they were doing to pull the oil from the bottom of the Gulf, all those problems broke. They had oil begin to spill just about, thousands and thousands of gallons a minute. I mean, it became the largest natural disaster in this country's history.
And the settlement, how recent was that? Has that settlement been reached?
You know, it's been a few months. Right. You know, it's getting some press, but I don't think folks really know the extent of the settlement. Yeah. You know, anytime there's a catastrophe this large, there's an exorbitant amount of litigation. All these cases eventually went down to New Orleans, Louisiana, where they're centralized. Right. They're litigated there for a couple years. We were involved in some of the cases there. They're being litigated. You know, finally BP agreed to make a settlement. I mean, the amount of evidence against them, their responsibility became too large. Right. And so, you know, several months ago, the sides got together. The judge there overseeing the settlement approved a final settlement, which basically, it had two parts, the personal injury side and economic side. Okay. Tonight, we're just going to talk about the economic side, because that's what we're here to discuss. You know, the settlement established a fund of over $7 billion for truly any business in the state of Alabama to make a claim. And that $7 billion is just a starting point. There's no cap on damages. So if all that money is paid out, BP has to put more money in to pay the remaining claims. So there's no cap on damages.
No cap on a global settlement like this is really almost unprecedented.
Absolutely.
It's a first of its kind for this size of a claim. And our firm got involved in this kind of early on. Since the resolution, we have started representing a bunch of different businesses, everybody from car dealerships to private dental offices, to law firms, to doctor offices, to gas stations and restaurants. And that's primarily what we're going to be talking about today, is the impact that the settlement has economically on businesses. A lot of folks believe that if they are operating a business, if they did not directly lose money because of the BP oil spill, they're not eligible, and that's just not the case whatsoever. Literally any business in Alabama any business in Louisiana, Mississippi, and where else? I guess the Gulf Coast of Florida.
Yeah, and Texas.
Would be eligible under certain circumstances based on kind of an economic analysis that is done. In addition, I think businesses generally have understood that you have to be on the Gulf Coast in order to recover, and that's not the case at all. We represent businesses in Huntsville and Birmingham, and there are some exceptions to the comment that any business can qualify. Insurance companies can't qualify, and some independent contractors can't. Commercial real estate developers may not. But other than those limited adjustments or circumstances, everybody else qualifies for the settlement, and there's a simple economic analysis that can be done with a business to determine what they're eligible for, if anything.
Well, what can be recovered from BP by filing a claim?
Sure, a lot of it depends on the type of business it is. What kind of business are you operating? But just in general, you know, what we look at is the loss in revenue during that time period. What you have to do is establish a baseline, you know, and you can use that, and you can look at either the oil spill happened in April 2010. So we need to back up and establish what your baseline was for revenue during a time prior to that spill, which can be either year 2009, an average of 2008 and 9, or an average of 2007, 2008, and 2009. Truly, whatever gives you the highest baseline is the number, you know, that you should use. And then from that point, you look at a drop in revenue following the spill. So you compare your baseline number with where you dropped in the spill, and then, you know, post-spill again, maybe 2011, if you start kind of coming up a little bit, that kind of establishes a final baseline. Yeah. So whatever that drop in revenue was during that time, that's the kind of claim you can make.
And again, I think it's important to note it's literally an economic analysis. It's a financial analysis. It is not based on some specific impact that the BP oil spill had to your business. And I know at first glance, people may kind of shake their head at that and say, well, that doesn't seem fair to BP, but let me tell you why. It is because the Obama administration, who helped kind of establish some of this fund initially and increased the fund when BP initially had kind of their opinion of what it should be, they really put some pressure to make sure that the fund was going to be increased. The powers that be, the experts, have indicated that the BP oil spill had such a systemic impact on the southeastern region. And when I say systemic, I mean all-inclusive, including all facets of the way we do business, from people getting gas to buying cars to using health care to moving from our communities because they could not find business anymore or find work anymore. It had such a systemic impact. The BP claim is open to any business whatsoever, with the exceptions of what I already named, any business whatsoever that can prove the economic analysis. And so because of the systemic impact, that's why businesses that don't have a direct loss due to something that happened related to BP could still be eligible. And I'll give you an example. It's simple if you ran a seafood restaurant on the Gulf Coast and nobody came down to the Gulf Coast for a year to say that person's got a direct loss related to BP. Or if you ran a business that rented out homes in that area and nobody wanted to come down to the beach. We're talking about dental offices. We're talking about car dealerships here that were impacted from an economic perspective. They didn't even recognize it, but because of the systemic impact, they may have been impacted. So any business needs to consider getting to a lawyer, whether it's you know, some other lawyer or us. We don't say come to us necessarily. Come to any lawyer to make sure that the analysis can be done to determine whether or not you're eligible.
Time for our first break. We'll pause right there, but when we come back, we'll continue the conversation here about the BP oil spill and those claims. More of that coming up. A reminder as we head to break, ways that you can contact the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch. You can call, text, email. Find them on Facebook. Just search the term Hollis, Wright & Couch. And on Twitter, Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch, and thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never need legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to this show or related to other civil legal matters, call, email, or text us to talk with one of our lawyers. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter to learn about important legal news that could affect you or your family. Or simply contact us by going to alabamas13.com and click on the attorneys link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and for watching The Attorneys right here on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. Plenty of time remaining in this show for you to get your questions to us. The information on how you can call, text, email will be on your screen throughout. Love getting your questions. The question we have here, you say I could have a claim, in quotation marks. Does this mean that I have to go to court to get money from BP?
Good question.
No, not at all. Not at all. That process has already taken place. Like I said, there's lots of litigation going on over the last couple years. Settlement has been reached. The causation side has been taken care of. It is simply a claims process, and I think that's the difference. That's folks need to understand. You won't be filing a lawsuit. You won't be named in a pending lawsuit. No depositions, no interrogatories. You know, I know we've talked about that on some other shows before about the court process. No one's going to contact you. You don't have to go anywhere. The settlement is in place. It's simply let's make some claims and let's get folks paid.
The way it works now with our firm, for example, businesses that we represent, they contact us. We sign them up with a very simple form. Some financial information confidentially is provided directly to the forensic accountants, so we never even see the financial information that comes from the business. That's one of the things that we think is important, that financial information and the integrity of that information is only provided to the experts. Right. And the experts within about a week to 10 days can answer one of two questions. The first question is the person, or the business rather, eligible to participate in the settlement? Do they meet the initial hurdle? If the answer to that is yes, we communicate back with the business, let the business know that they are eligible, and to confirm they want to go to the next step. The next step takes a little bit longer, could take as long as 30 days, maybe 45 days at most, and that analysis is to what extent are they eligible, and that is a forensic evaluation of the financials of the business to determine to what extent, from a dollar perspective, can they make claim to the BP fund. When you get to that step and you get a number back, then you are simply applying that claim to the claims administrator to get paid through the claims process. It is literally that simple. Right. It's not an invasive process at all, and it's not like filing a lawsuit. So any business in Alabama that has filed tax returns over the last 5-year period should consider the opportunity to determine whether or not their business qualifies or not by simply getting with someone that knows this process. And the concept of the show is to make sure we get the word out to let people know that they have an opportunity to collect under this fund because of the fact that they had the Southeastern Conference, or Southeastern area, had a systemic impact based on the BP spill. Yeah,
no, that's exactly right. And Josh even mentioned something about the 5-year period and tax returns over the last 5 years. There are also provisions in the settlement for business startups, maybe businesses who don't have that long history of 5 years. So if you started a business literally in January 2010 and continued in business through 2011, you still can make a claim. There are special provisions about being a startup, and it can take into account things like projected revenue, projected profits that you had. If you had a business plan drawn up to get financing for your business, you present it to a bank, you can present some materials like that to make your claim. So if you're sitting there and you're wondering, well, maybe I do, maybe I don't, let me think about this, hey, just call us. Yeah. It's not going to hurt you. And like Josh said, this is a legal process, but having answers in a matter of days or a month is just unheard of, you know, for this type of process. I mean, so it's amazing. It's going quicker. The amount of folks who are qualifying are much larger than we ever thought would qualify, and I think that's another reason to come back on here. You know, because we thought at first, yeah, let's see how it's really going to work. Well, now we're learning, hey, this is how it's really going to work.
Right.
I mean, these businesses are getting paid, and it's a dollar for dollar. If they've lost this much money, they're getting back that much money.
Right.
You know, and sometimes depending on the category of business, there may be some multipliers involved. You know, if you're part of the tourist industry, you know, if you get this tourist designation, and that has been defined very broadly. I mean, it can encompass basically if you're a retail store or a restaurant, no matter where you're located, you may actually be able to qualify under a tourist type industry, which may potentially double the amount of money you'd receive in a claim. So
I want to further underscore too that it's not just Gulf Coast businesses. It's businesses that are in Birmingham. We represent folks in Huntsville. It is anybody that is in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, or on the Gulf Coast.
Right.
So it can impact just about any type of business.
And again, we use the term business loosely. I mean, as broad as you can define business, that's what it amounts to. We have nonprofits that we file for-profits, LLPs, LLCs, Chapter S corporations, Chapter C. I mean, literally, you name it. There are a couple exceptions, and I think Josh touched on them earlier, but believe me, it is a broad definition of who qualifies. And like I said, it will cost you zero to pick up the phone and call us or call another lawyer and just ask a few questions. Everything's going to be kept very confidential. Like I said, we don't even see the financials. You know, like Josh said, we'll put you in touch with our experts. You know, with our forensic folks. You two talk it out. We just want to come in once he says yes, they qualify. Then the lawyers will come in and we'll take over and we'll make sure we maximize your recovery.
Well, any sort of a deadline to be a part of this?
Good question.
You know. Not in the very near future. There's a soft deadline in place, a very soft deadline of I think January 2014, maybe April 2014, but that is going to get moved to make it longer, not to shorten. It's going to get moved out.
Right.
So really it's to be determined is the best way to say it. The court is administering this. They're keeping an eye on how things are going. The people who we have in place are just known for handling these large type of settlements. So they understand how it's going to work. They can tell based on the steadiness of the claims coming in, the amount of the claims coming in, if they need to extend it, if they don't. And so time will tell. But say a soft deadline, you have approximately 12 months. If you were really wanting a deadline right now, I'd say, you have about 12 months to file something. But again, that may change.
You all, we have a question here about the types of businesses. It sounds like it is those who more conventional were affected by the oil spill, and many that you really wouldn't think a direct link. But so the conventional and even in the non-conventional.
And believe me, you could throw as many examples as you wanted to out there. I mean, we have there's a tanning salon. Who's been affected, and they filed a claim, and they're in North Alabama, and we kind of laugh or a little bit, a tanning salon, what's the point? They say, you had no idea how many people want to tan before they go to the beach. And I'm like, are you serious? I go to the beach I don't tan, but I get burned at the beach, but they're like, no, everybody wants to tan before they go to the beach. People weren't going to the beach that year, so go figure. Like I said, you can draw a distinction, but again, causation is we're never going to be questioned.
Right. Time for our second break of the evening. One final segment of the attorneys coming your way after this short break. As we head to break, a reminder of how you can get in touch with the firm of Hollis, Wright, and Couch to discuss the BP oil spill or anything similar. Also find them on Facebook. Search the term Hollis, Wright, and Couch. Find them on Facebook or Twitter, Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. The attorneys coming right up.
I'm Greg Foster with the law firm of Hollis, Wright, and Couch. Whether you're buying a car or placing a loved one in a nursing home, there are many types of contracts that include arbitration agreements. But these agreements sometimes can be confusing, and are you required to even sign them? In this week's Legal 411, we're answering the question, what is an arbitration agreement? Arbitration is a way of resolving a dispute. Instead of going to court, you go to arbitration. In legal terms, it's known as a forum selection clause. That means you select where the dispute will be heard. Traditionally, most people prefer the courtroom as the place for their dispute to be heard. That's because a judge oversees the dispute, and this judge is elected by popular vote. Plus, a jury of 12 members of your community decides the facts of the case. They hear the testimony and see the evidence before making a judgment. On the other hand, arbitration has 1 to 3 arbitrators who will decide the fate of the case. These arbitrators are not elected, but are instead hand-picked. If the parties cannot mutually agree on an arbitrator, the arbitrator may be selected from a pool of people who may have worked in the same industry as the individual or company who injured or caused harm to you. And there is no jury. So before you sign an arbitration agreement, here are 5 steps you need to take. Read all documents thoroughly. If you don't agree, don't sign anything. If you don't understand, consult an attorney. If the business tells you that you must sign an arbitration agreement to purchase a product or receive a service, don't do business with them, or indicate on the document you signed that you signed it, quote, under duress, or, quote, I was forced to sign, end quote. Particularly in the nursing home setting, indicate on the document that you were told to sign the document so that your loved one would receive treatment and care. Put that in quotations on the document. Listen, if you sign an arbitration agreement, you give up your 7th Amendment right to trial by jury under the U.S. Constitution, as well as your right to a jury in the state of Alabama. In other words, when you sign an arbitration agreement, you waive your rights as an American citizen. So it's up to you. Do you want your case to be heard by 12 members of your community or some employees of the industry that might have harmed you or your loved one? Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis, Wright & Couch want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into our final segment of The Attorneys. Just a few minutes remaining in the show, but still time enough for you to get your questions into us. You can call, text, or email that information on the screen. Billions and billions of dollars involved in this settlement. Why the need? Why the need for an attorney to access the funds in the settlement?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know. And I guess a better question may be, you know, do I have to have an attorney? There's always a need for an attorney, to be honest. I mean, we would highly recommend that you at least get some counsel from an attorney, you know, before you proceed, because there's certainly, while we do believe it's an easy process compared to like a full-blown trial or a full-blown case. There are still several nuances within the settlement that require, one, you know, some interpretation, and some of it may need judicial interpretation, because while the settlement did try to cover as many aspects, they can't foresee every problem that's going to come up when submitting a claim. And they can't determine every designation that may have been a tourist industry. And so they can go back to the court, the administrator may go back to the court with some questions or things of that nature. And so if you kind of fall in that gray area, and what we're finding, this is over 50% of the time, that there are some gray areas in this settlement. And we're actually having to petition either the administrator to go and try to get some clarification, either from the council who put this together or from the court. And so for times like that, and it's been a significant result, you know, the answer was so important where it may have changed the claim from, you know, low 5 figures to a 6-figure claim based on that recharacterization. And so, while an individual may be able to file this claim by themselves, or I know I hear a lot of this is that, well, their accountants are just handling it for them. I mean, that's fine. That's certainly allowed in this process. However, we would certainly recommend you consult an attorney as well. You know, while an accountant, they do handle the numbers, and that's great. You know, if you get denied and you want to lodge the appeal or go through the appeal process, I'm just not sure, you know, if that's who you want. Right. You know, I don't know another way to say it. I think speaking with a lawyer, you know, you can be assured that they understand the processes, they understand the nuances of the settlement, they understand that if we want to get something changed or something recategorized, we can petition the court and file things.
I'll tell you also a couple quick things, David. The fee that is being charged in these cases from lawyers and accountants is the same. It's incredibly low because it's a processing claim. It's not like a full litigation claim, so it's a very low fee. And the lawyers are charging nothing for their services unless there is a recovery generally. And so that may be different from the accountants who want to charge for the analytical work that's being done, whereas the lawyers are going to do the initial analytical work. At the end of the day, whether you come to our law firm or go to some other firm, we recommend you do talk with somebody that is knowledgeable about the process. I don't think you can just go through this alone assuming you're going to be able to file your own claim. You're going to need assistance from someone to make sure that it is properly filed and is properly classified. And if you don't classify it right, it may be the difference between you making a or getting a five-figure difference versus a six-figure difference. So you want to make sure that you're with the right person that has the right experts involved to make sure that you're maximizing the recovery you can get. 15-second
final comment, final thought from you guys.
Well, I know it's like beating a dead horse, but truly, if you're a business in the state of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, file a claim, talk to somebody. Just find out. We can give you a free peek. We can let you know if you have a claim before we file it.
Josh?
It's worth the call. A free peek is definitely worth the call to determine whether you qualify in the first place.
All right, gentlemen, thanks so much.
Yeah, Dave.
Appreciate the time tonight. Also appreciate you being with us. As we wrap this up, a reminder of how you can get in touch with the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch. You can call, text, email. Also, if you're a Facebooker, find them on Facebook. Search the term Hollis, Wright & Couch. Or on Twitter, it's Hollis_Wright. We appreciate you being with us, and we'll look for you next Sunday night right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch.